Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Bama Blitz. It's Luke Robinson along with Caleb Brooks. Thank you so much for being with us today. We hope to see ourselves here on the screen in just a minute. We got a frozen screen, but hopefully you don't. I don't know if we should call this the Bama Blitz anymore or the Totally Tua Tagovailoa Television and Tadio Hour or whatever we should call it, because it's another week, another fabulous performance from Tua. He's got a unique first name to begin with, but he's quickly becoming a first name basis guy based on just what his accomplishment so far.
Yeah, when you look at the type of numbers that he was able to put up Saturday in the first half are just numbers that I don't think we've seen from any quarterback before in one half of football. And, it helps out that they've got guys that are able to make plays when they get the ball in their hand. You look at Irv Smith, first play of the game, he's able to get up the sideline. Our wide receivers, and this has gone back to Julio Jones days, our wide receivers block as good as anybody in the country. And they're able to get out in front of him and block the way they were. And, you just see it all the time. I remember the first game of the year against Louisville. And, we had the little read play, you threw it to Devontae Smith, and all of a sudden Henry Ruggs is out there in front trying to make a block for him going down the field. And you just see that all the time with Alabama, and that's why they're able to have all these explosive plays. But it starts with the guy who's getting the ball. And Tua just does a fantastic job of reading defenses and getting those guys the football.
And putting it in the right place, too. I think that's so crucial. We've seen far too many times a quarterback who couldn't put the ball exactly where it needed to be, and then the receivers have to make an adjustment of some type. You can see how difficult it can be to put the ball in the right spot based on some of Jarrett Stidham's throws the other night. So, it's difficult to play this position. He just seems to have a knack for it, like, frankly, nobody I've ever seen at the University of Alabama. It really is remarkable each week to watch him do something that seems even better than what he did the previous week. And, he also elevates the game of these receivers because they want to go out and catch one of these things. And Jerry Jeudy, obviously, I think has become the target because he probably is the most talented of the receivers, or at least the flashiest. But Ruggs is pretty strong, and Ruggs just, he made the big hustle play on the fumble recovery. Devontae Smith didn't have a catch this past week, I don't think.
No, but he made the great play, ended up being out of bounds. But
That's right.
Went up and caught the ball, ended up being out of bounds. But, like you said, I think that Jerry Jeudy is starting to establish himself as the guy at receiver, but it's hard to really pick one of them, and then you add in Jalen Waddle into the mix, and, it's hard to pick one of them as the best guy. I think Jeudy probably has the most talent. He had all the Ridley and Cooper comparisons coming out of high school, and he's kind of lived up to it now this year, and you could see flashes of it last year when he got the ball in his hand, but that was a problem last year. These guys just weren't getting the ball in their hands, and now you see what happens when they get the ball in their hands. They're just able to make plays, and it really is something fun to watch.
And look, I'm going to try and take a different approach here. Nick Saban begged us to come up with some negative things to say, and I think after the Arkansas game, we might have some negative things to say. Look, you can start the defense in general and say, thank God for Tua, because the defense right now is not playing up to the standards that we're used to. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they're a bad defense. I think they're still very good defense. This is not a historic defense. This is not 2011 Alabama. This is, a pretty good defense that has sustained several injuries. And it's got some guys that, have had to step in for one reason or another, injuries or early departures to the NFL draft. That we have seen that catch up to LSU probably more than any team in college football. They seem to have a lot of talent, but every year they lose a lot of juniors, and it's a very difficult thing to overcome. Alabama's been able to do it because they have such great leadership. LSU hadn't had necessarily the best leadership, and so I think that has certainly affected them. But, kicking is still an issue. My kingdom for a kicker. I don't know what Alabama needs to do to find a kicker. And meanwhile, you see the kid from Fort Payne, the true freshman. He committed to Dan Mullen at Mississippi State, and then he committed to Dan Mullen at Florida and ended up signing there. He's booting 50-some-odd yarders. There was another kid.
Well, he kicked a 60-yarder in high school.
That's right.
So
you
knew his leg was there.
And there was another kid whose name escaped me, not Brandon Rees at Arizona State, but another kid that Alabama had committed at one time that booted a 57-yarder this weekend. I mean, it's just unbelievable how they get here. It's like that's the price we've paid for all these other great things. And it's a hefty price. But I saw or heard a stat this weekend. We have, meaning Alabama has missed 4 extra points this year. No other SEC team has missed 1. Now, more than 1, I should say. That's unbelievable.
Not only that, we're kicking them off the uprights.
Well,
they got to be setting a record for the most kicks off the uprights on extra points ever.
Well, one of our kickers did it in back-to-back kicks.
Yeah.
You couldn't do that. You could give Mike Vanderjagt just line up footballs right down the field horizontally. There is no chance he could kick those things off the upright and back-to-back kicks. It just can't be done. And we did it on opposite ones like it was nothing. It's really amazing that is the issue that it is. If we had average kicking, I mean, just average kicking, I don't even think it would be much of a topic. But because, look, again, it's a nightmare for Alabama fans. I mean, kicking has cost Alabama so many times. You think about the 2011 LSU game. Obviously, you think about the kick six game where we missed several field goals before we missed the field goal that they returned for the iconic touchdown. The Ole Miss game, I think 2 of them, the 2 losses in 14 and 15. I mean, you could just go down the list and think about how many times a blown didn't we miss one in the national championship game against Clemson? I think we ended up winning that game, but the one in Arizona, I believe we missed a kick in that game.
Yeah.
Gosh, it's mind-boggling to think about how many we've missed in all these losses.
And you really have to go all the way back to 2005 to find the last time that kicking really won a game for Alabama outside of Adam Griffith's onside kick. That 2005 when Jamie Christensen made all those field goals to win games is really the last time that field goal kicking has done really a positive thing for Alabama in winning games. So, you know, it's been a struggle really since that point. Lee Tiffin got better as his career went on, but then since then, it's just been really hard to find consistency at the kicker position.
And meanwhile, I mean, again, fate is playing all these cruel jokes on us because the Carlsons grew up Alabama fans, had all these connections. We just didn't recruit them. We went after some other guys that we thought would be better. They ended up not being better. Maybe if Carlson had come here, you know, look, he's gone to the pros and gone right down the tubes. Maybe he would have come to Alabama and just hit the skids earlier. Who knows?
Who knows? And, you know, his brother, he's struggling right now, but it's also, that's partly on Gus Malzahn sticking him in all these situations. I mean, you got a freshman, you're sticking him out there for 50-yarders just consistently.
Right.
He's going to miss them.
And look, again, Alabama fans can tell you, I think you can go back to Adam Griffith and say the kick six probably haunted him for a while. Now, he exercised some of those demons 2 years later in the Iron Bowl where he kicked 5 field goals, I think it was.
That was one of the most fun things to watch.
It was, but again, he didn't exactly have the greatest career. I mean, he had that shining moment, but he is going to be remembered now and forever for the kick six, and that's not necessarily his fault.
No, and that's sad because he does have the onside kick in the national championship. That was a big part in Alabama winning that game, but people were just always going to remember Adam Griffith as the guy of the kick six, and he shouldn't have been in that situation.
And the fact that I think when people talk about that onside kick, they credit more Saban than anything, or maybe even Marlon Humphrey, who made a great play to go get it. That you rarely even think about Griffith being the one who made that
and
kick.
The way he placed that kick,
it was beautiful.
About as perfect as you can get.
It was unbelievable. But again, I don't think it trumps in the minds of people. It may trump in his mind, his family's mind. It probably does. But a couple of comments coming in now. Appreciate everybody tuning in to Tua Tuesday. That's what we're going to call it right now, according to Justin Mosley. Two-Man Kirk says, go from watching Auburn Blitz to a Bama Blitz. Life is good. Brett Pritchard says, right now field goals are a glaring problem because Alabama is winning by such a large margin, but it's bitten them in close games in the past, and that's what we're saying. I don't know when the next close game will be. Frankly, I don't think it'll be this weekend. I don't think it'll be against Tennessee. LSU could be an issue unless the wheels have come off of LSU. I mean, I could see –
We're going to really find out this weekend.
A game against Georgia, if they lose that game – you know, and you've put all this heart and soul into at Florida, home against Georgia, and then you come back to a Mississippi State team that's coming off a bye week, that's now they're riding a bit of a high. I mean, you know, LSU could be on a 3-game skid heading into this. So,
and this is off of Alabama, but you have to credit Mississippi State this weekend against Auburn. They finally kind of put a game plan in place that was favorable towards their quarterback. They weren't out there trying to chunk it around, which he just can't do. I mean, you can tell he can't do it. So now you've got that, and they have an extra week to prepare, and LSU's coming off of Florida, Georgia, and then you have to play Mississippi State's coming off a bye. It's a tough situation going into the Alabama game.
It's going to be difficult, and we're just going to be here for the duration till about 6 o'clock. We don't really have a set time we're doing this just yet, just for anybody following us on Facebook Live. And that's the only way to follow us is on Facebook Live right now. We're probably going to be trying to change that, trying to do some things like the Auburn Blitz. But as I mentioned last week, we're in Tallapoosa County. We're deep in the heart of Auburn country, and we just work with the little bit of time they give us. And that's all we get to do, isn't it, Caleb?
Yeah, that's about it, I guess.
So Brett said, he brought up a good point. Brett said, the missed kick in the national championship game last year. And I don't know, I guess I just mentally blocked that one out too, because I was at that game. I had my phone up to video it, the ceremonious kick, and then you video it and you put it on YouTube, and all of a sudden you're a hero. Yeah. And I mean, I remember as soon as it left his foot, I just put my phone down. So that's
and he missed one first drive of the game as well. In the
that's true.
Championship
God,
game. That could put them up 3-0, and probably changes the outlook of that whole game.
Oh, there's no question.
So it may have ended up being a good thing that he missed the kick.
It could, I guess.
We may have never seen Tua, and
that's true. You wouldn't have had the moment.
Yeah.
That you ended up having. Two-Man Kirk says, defense is more glaring issue in my mind. Kicking game definitely on the radar to be tuned up as well. I guess another thing to bring up about kicking, and this is more funny than a problem, even though punting has not been very good. Alabama hadn't punted the last 2 games. Technically, our punter could still redshirt. Yeah. Obviously, that won't stick, but it's a funny thing to say right now. Other things trying to be negative, obviously the injuries. Now we find out Diggs has a broken foot. Yeah. That certainly
had a bad time. Really, really bad time. Going into this week.
Okay, I'm with you that it's a bad time. I believe it. I'm going to try and spin this positive. I told you I wanted to try and be negative because I'm a reverse jinx guy. I think that, you say, we ain't got no chance. And then, I like to Lou Holtz this thing. But I'm looking at the practice report and talking about the guys taking Trayvon Diggs' place. Obviously, Savion Smith would be the first choice, and Patrick Surtain will be on the other side. And then you got names like Josh Jobe and Nigel Knott. Look, I wanted Nigel Knott badly to be in his signing class. It hadn't developed for him for whatever reason, just like the light hadn't come on for Ben Davis for whatever reason. Sometimes it just doesn't. I know he's an incredible athlete, but I get worried when I think about his being out on the field right now. And then there is a walk-on named DJ Lewis who's going to be in the mix. Now, you say all this is bad. I agree with you. It's not a great thing. If we didn't have Tua commanding the offense to score literally at will, that's not cocky Alabama fan. That's just kind of how it's going. Then I would be more worried. Now, what I think this is a golden opportunity for some of these guys who hadn't done a lot of practice. Okay, this is a golden opportunity for Savion Smith to get out of the doghouse from that first play against Ole Miss where he gives up the long touchdown. It's a golden opportunity for Nigel Knott and Josh Jobe to learn on the fly a little bit because, look, Missouri's going to sling it all over the field. They got a good quarterback. They got a great receiver, and they've got a bit of a running game, but they don't have much of a defense. And I feel like Alabama will be able to score when they want to score. And here's the thing. I mean, if Alabama scores 3 times to your 1, we're still going to blow you out. Yeah. So I think that's kind of how that's going to go down. And I can live with that for now as long as we're getting better. And then you get into Tennessee, and frankly, I still think Tennessee's a dumpster fire. I heard some people say they got a shot against Auburn this year. They don't have a shot against Auburn this year. Tennessee is that bad. This is a chance for Auburn to get better this week. And next week too against Ole Miss. So I think Alabama and Auburn both have very fortuitous schedules here in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, on the defensive side, I think a little bit of, if you go back to what Saban, if you watch his press conferences Monday, Wednesday, if you listen to the show on Thursday, I think he kind of pointed to that we didn't practice very hard last week. You could kind of tell with his tone and some of the things he said that he didn't feel that we were taking Arkansas as serious as they needed to be taken. And he preached it throughout the week, and I think we saw the results of that on Saturday. We lost people defensively, and now they did a few things offensively that they hadn't been doing with the tight ends, and that confused Alabama a little bit. And you have to give them props on that. They're getting a little bit better on offense as the year goes on and as this quarterback grows a little bit for Arkansas. This isn't the same offensive team that Auburn faced and only gave up 3 points against. But I think that they lost their focus a little bit. And Mac Wilson's already come out and said that things are going to get better, and he's going to make sure of it. And he's a guy that I point to as probably the leader of this defense right now. And you talked about injuries. He's one of them that has an injury. He's playing on basically a broken foot again this year, and it's an injury they said, really, you can't injure anymore, but he's going to have off-season surgery on it. So, you know, they're a little beat up. They're without Terrell Lewis. They're without Chris Allen, and that's hurt them a little bit depth-wise. They're having guys out there longer, and we're scoring so fast that teams are getting out there more consistently than they were in the past as well.
And that's true. Again, we are scoring pretty quickly. I mean, it's the second straight year we've scored against Arkansas on the first play of the game.
Yeah.
Damian Harris took it 75 yards last year, and then the 70 or so yarder to Irv Smith this year, who looked – that's a guy he's already got 87 more yards than all of Alabama's tight ends combined last year. And, I mean, again, it's one of those things where Alabama fans have been begging for the tight end to get involved, and we saw it against Clemson both times with O.J. Howard. But that's and then the one touchdown running it against LSU that gave everybody all this hope for the tight end. But other than that, I mean, I would say
it takes a quarterback that's able to get the tight end the ball.
Right.
I mean, it takes being able to read defenses and know, because getting it to the tight end takes more than just dropping back and just throwing to them. You know, there's a lot that goes into it. And we got a guy right now that can. You know, you talked about O.J. Howard. Just imagine O.J. Howard with Tua right now and what he could have been able to do. I mean, it would have been incredible to watch O.J. Howard with Tua.
You know, I'm going to tell you something, though. Irv Smith isn't bad. Irv Smith's pretty damn strong.
Very athletic.
Now, we all have this dream about O.J. Howard being – and he's been pretty good in the pros, but he hadn't exactly been Jimmy Graham. I mean, he's been pretty solid. But
he's going to get better and better and better.
Yeah,
and,
I think so,
this
too.
injury sets him back a little bit, and that's unfortunate. But as he continues to learn the offense, continues to grow a little bit, I think O.J. is going to be one of the top tight ends in the NFL.
Randy Lee said, I'm shocked the Arkansas team I saw play Auburn can score 30 on anyone. Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. I mean, honestly, they could have scored more. They fumbled deep in their own territory, or deep in our territory. But, again, I think it's the way, just like you couldn't imagine that, I couldn't imagine a team not putting up all the offensive points they want to against that Arkansas defense. I think each game you have to take, the circumstance of each game. I mean, that game that Auburn played them there in Jordan Hare, it was at Auburn, et cetera. So Arkansas they didn't have as much together. And I think that was a good litmus test for Arkansas to kind of see what they're going to be up against for the rest of the year. They played one of the top 2 or 3 defenses in this conference against Auburn, and they kind of got a feeling like, oh, we got to get better. We're not very good. And I think that they have gotten better since then offensively. They looked better offensively against Texas A&M, and I'd say A&M's got a pretty doggone stout defense. I mean, they held Benny Snell in check. They did good things against Clemson. If I'm not mistaken, they held Alabama to the lowest point total of the season.
Yeah, and you know, that's a team I'm glad that Alabama played early in the year.
Yeah.
I think they're going to continue to get better and better as the year goes on. You can tell Jimbo's changing that culture there. So that Alabama played them 4th game of the year instead of playing them, you know, the week after LSU or the week before LSU like they did back in 2012.
No, I'm right there with you. And now Arkansas, I think you're going to see Arkansas get better. I don't know that the record's going to reflect it. But I think that I don't like being somebody's coming out party, but I feel like Alabama gave them some confidence. Yeah. And I got to give them credit, too, because Alabama went up 21-0 on them, and they did not quit.
And I thought they were about to quit. They looked like they were about to quit.
Under Bielema, that game's over. Over. It's all you want to nothing. And under any of these other coaches they've had, under Bielema, under John L. Smith, under Petrino, I mean, Alabama beat them 52-0 in back-to-back years a couple of years ago. So that's how I know this with different coaches. And I think that's a testament to Chad Morris, and they're kind of buying in. And since then, they have gotten a 4-star wide receiver commitment out of Tennessee. So I'm not saying Arkansas is going to be a world beater. I'm not trying to paint a pretty picture of Alabama's defense right now. Things are not great. Linebackers look completely lost at times. They were not covering the tight end. There were obviously some of the defensive backs weren't doing well. Maybe we found out why Diggs was beaten a couple of times because he had a broken foot. But, it is what it is. And I think Missouri's going to put up points this weekend too. So that's certainly an issue. And you mentioned scoring too quick, which I think is sort of unique for us to even have that issue. I mean, we talked about scored on the opening play against Arkansas last year, but again, that was norm. And when you had Jalen Hurts out there, if you were having success ultimately scoring, it was generally a time-consuming drive, a lot of 3rd and 4s, a lot of 3rd and 1s that you get on runs and the clock just tick, 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 tick. Well, now, I mean, you go out there, we're 99 yards from pay dirt, it may just be one pass.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible to watch. And, I mean, right now when the offense is playing the way that they are now, granted, they haven't faced a just tough defense yet, and they won't until LSU.
A&M's far and away the best defense they play.
Yeah, without a doubt, and they're not, when you think about all the defenses in the country, they're not one of the top.
Would Arkansas State be second?
I mean, yeah, I would
maybe.
Yeah,
I mean, I'll tell you.
It's definitely not Ole Miss.
End of the year, I may think differently. If Arkansas State and Arkansas played Saturday, I'm taking Arkansas State to win the game.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would Arkansas State or Ole Miss just because Ole Miss can sling it around a little bit more. But, yeah, I think Arkansas State's defense might – and Louisville's it certainly wasn't theirs.
You give up that many points to Florida State, you're pretty bad on defense.
Randy says, anybody y'all see so far that can score with Bama if the defense continues to struggle? Yeah, I mean, Ohio State.
Yeah.
Oklahoma. I was glad to see Oklahoma lose, to be honest with you. I mean, look, I want Alabama to play the better teams in the playoffs. I don't want to play UCF, not because I'm scared of UCF, because that's just not what I want. I'm a blue bloods guy. I want to see Alabama play Notre Dame, Alabama play Texas, Alabama play Michigan, whatever. I don't want to see UCF.
Well, look, the bottom line is if Alabama played UCF in a playoff game, I'm not talking about the Chick-fil-A Bowl. I'm talking about in a playoff game, Alabama would wipe them off the field.
I agree.
mean, it's just the truth. Alabama has way better athletes. They would score on their defense at will. And I just think UCF would struggle a little bit because they wouldn't have played a defense the caliber of Alabama.
And again, it's so funny to follow a guy like Tim Brando who loves to say, well, the SEC, they don't play 9 conference games. Well, first of all, we don't need to. I mean, we're doing well playing 8. So why? And our 8 is equal to the Pac-12's 9, I'd say, or maybe even harder. And secondly, Alabama does play a tough non-conference game each year. Now, Louisville was down this year. I hate it for Louisville. I wish they weren't, but they were. But what do you want, Tim? You want Alabama to play Ohio State and Oklahoma every year? Why would Alabama and Oklahoma State agree to that?
Yeah.
I mean, and he's like, "We'll give some other people a chance." That's not what this isn't. That's not what this is about. This is go be the best you can be, and see what happens.
No,
and as UCF does not play in a good conference, and they had North Carolina non-conference this year, and they didn't even get to play them again. The second year in a row that an ACC opponent, middle tier ACC opponent, game was rained out. And again, that's unfortunate.
Hard to call them middle tier. They lost to East Carolina 41-17.
Two-man Kirk, I agree. Texas A&M is going to beat some good teams this year. Yeah, I mean, I think so. Brett says, Bama Blitz will be announcing a new schedule in the near future. Everybody stay tuned. See, Luke, we give Bama Blitz more time. Look, it is what it is. I grew up here. I Ellick City. Everything's War Eagle that and War Eagle this. And so, look, it's fine with me. I've sort of enjoyed the moment here especially these last few days. I got to say, I've enjoyed these last few days. It's been a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
What I really enjoy is reading somebody like Philip Marshall's articles, because usually he tries to paint everybody calm down. Here's the bright night. There's not a lot of bright side right now for Auburn. I understand it's not as bad as they make it out to be. It's not. I understand it's not that bad, but it feels that bad. And I'll say this too, in defense of Gus Malzahn. People love to say, we're paying him $49 million. If you were paying him $30 million, you'd be saying, I'm paying him $30 million. I'm paying $30. If you were paying him $3 million total over 7 years, you'd be like, we're paying you $3 million. The money is not the issue, and you're not the ones paying it. It's the universities are paying it. It's what the market will bear. I think Leo DiCaprio is overpaid. I think some of these coaches are overpaid. I think Nick Saban's underpaid. But it's what it is. I mean, they got into the industry and they did a good job with it, and they've made a bunch of money. I'm for it. Go, capitalism. Go get your money, man. And nobody made Auburn give him that offer. They chose to do it, and so it is what it is. This is going to be probably at least another 4-loss year for them, which will make, 5 4-loss years or greater in a row? Yeah, I would consider that to be an issue, and I would also consider it to be a pattern.
Yeah, and that is something that would have to concern me if I am an Auburn fan. Randy and Brett talked about it on Auburn Blitz. Let's run 12-1 every day on the Sports Blitz Facebook page. And, they talked about, Randy said 13 was an anomaly. The year 2013 was an anomaly, and he doesn't see that happening again. And Brett pointed out they did come close last year, but last year a lot of things kind of went into that. And they got to play Georgia and Alabama at home, and that place was rocking, and they had a lot of momentum going for them. But when you look at the just body of work that Gus Malzahn's put out there, it's not very impressive, especially when you look at their record against Power 5 opponents over the past, 4 years?
Well, and again, I would also say for all the we were one that away from being in the playoffs, if you look over his history, the Georgia Hail Mary game and the Alabama Kick Six being essentially back-to-back games with one other dump game sandwich in between. If you don't have one of those, if you don't have one of them, you're looking at him completely differently.
Yeah.
Because then he never would have been to a national championship game. And it's wild how these moments in history we can look back. For instance, the Drew Brees thing last night. He sets the NFL passing record, and it was brought up a couple of times that, hey, Miami passed on him because the doctor said he was too hurt, and so they wouldn't sign off on him, so Saban couldn't have him. Saban went with Dante Culpepper. The rest is history. I mean, Saban may still be in the NFL.
Himself, had he gotten Drew Brees, he would have stayed at Miami because he liked what he had with him.
He'd probably still be in the NFL, to be frank with you. But thank the good Lord it worked out the way it did, is all I can say. Randy says we had Auburn converted to an Auburn fan at one point. Please tell that Lubba story. Lubba being my mother, and my brother is Austin, and Austin and Randy are about the same age, or I guess they are the same age. And when they were in elementary school, Randy and some of his friends, big Auburn fans, they just talked Auburn this and Auburn that. And Austin went home one day when they were riding home from school, and Mom had picked him up. And Austin said, "Mama, I think I'm going to be an Auburn fan." Mama slammed on the brakes and said, "Let me just tell you one thing. A lot of things might happen. That ain't one of them. You're not in my house. Not while you are living with me and eating the food I make and all those good things. Ain't happening. And you're just going to have to tough it out." And so he did, and, here we are. The rest is history. But to me, that's a beautiful thing because it tells you how important the rivalry is here.
Yeah.
And I love stories like that. But moving on, talking about a couple other things, and we can talk about all things SEC too. It doesn't necessarily have to all be Bama. If anybody has a question they'd like to chime in, feel free. It will be a big recruiting weekend for Alabama. A lot of guys coming in, a lot of 2020 guys coming in. I'm hoping to have some guests on this program eventually. I actually got to see Andrew Bone this weekend. We have a mutual friend. We were at the same party. I see him all the time for AHSA events, so I know him. But I saw him at this party, and I didn't really get into a lot of Bama talk with him. I mean, I think he's the kind of guy that, when he's working Bama stuff, that's great. When he's not, he's a big Fish fan. Fish meaning the band Fish. He follows him around relentlessly, and he's engaged to a wonderful girl and all that. Anyway, couple of SEC notes very quickly. Nick Fitzgerald sets the SEC all-time leading rushing mark for a quarterback. And it got me to thinking, how far away could Jalen Hurts be from that record? So Nick Fitzgerald right now is at 2,999 yards. Well, how many do you think Jalen Hurts has?
You said 2,900?
2,000. He's right at 3,000.
Okay. I mean, Jalen had, 800 his freshman year, and then didn't he have 800 last year?
He had roughly 800, 900, then 800, and he's got about 100 this year. He doesn't have that many this year. He's right at 1,900, 1,906. So, assuming Alabama plays all the way to the championship game, we played 6 games, got 9 games left at that point. If he could average 50 yards a game, which I don't think is out of the question. He's only got 97 up to this point, so it may be a little far-fetched. But if he can just average something like that, or maybe even get 500 total yards for the year, let me just make it a nice round number, and he gets to 2,400 yards. I mean, he would be within shouting distance of this mark if Fitzgerald. Now, Fitzgerald's obviously going to get some more this year too, so that record will probably go somewhere north of 3,500 yards. And in that case, I don't think Hurts could catch him. I will say this: if Hurts had been the starter for this year and next year, he would have obliterated that record.
I think so.
Because that's what he does. I mean, he doesn't do anything else. I just find that interesting. Again, history will look back and say Jalen Hurts, SEC Freshman of the Year, SEC Offensive Player of the Year, Alabama's all-time leading rusher as a quarterback. And I'm assuming, I didn't even look that up. I just assumed that to be true. I can't imagine. I mean, Stedman Shealy or somebody like that.
I mean, it'd have to be somebody from the Wishbone era.
Yeah,
that'd be ahead of.
I don't know, but I don't think any of them have had yardage like he has.
Yeah. Speaking of Jalen, what'd you think about the package with him and Tua out there at the same time?
Oh, I loved it. And then I love who's the guy on YouTube? Oh man, Coach something.
And there's a lot of people that say it's Kenny Bell.
Yeah. Well, what's his name though?
It's anonymous coaches or something like that. Yeah.
It's like John Doe, Coach
John Doe.
Well, if it is Kenny Bell, that he's hilarious.
Yeah.
So go check it out on YouTube. You can check it out on Twitter. What he does, he takes clips of Alabama games from the week, and he just sort of highlights what has happened from a coaching perspective, a very urban coaching perspective. And man, it is funny stuff. And this week, if you notice, when Tua and Jalen were in the same package, one of the plays, I think they were in that same package 2 or 3 times.
I think they ran 2 plays in a row.
Yeah.
That was it. You had Tua with the handoff and then Jalen with the quarterback draw.
That's right. So, okay, when Jalen did the quarterback draw, Tua went out and split out to the left. And when he did, the Arkansas defensive back jammed him very, very quickly, kind of hit his face mask, turned his head a little bit. And you could tell Tua was like, whoa, because he's not used to that. And I get it from all sides. I get it from the defensive back perspective. Like, hey, if I get a shot to jam this quarterback, I'm jamming this quarterback. That's cool. But the coach John Doe said, look, he said, if you ever do that again, you're going to think Tua, because it's going to be me and 2 of my cousins come up there and whip your butt. I mean, it's just great stuff. And then what's even funnier, the Arkansas defensive back, whose name escapes me, saw that on Twitter and retweeted it and said, man, I'm not trying to start nothing.
Yeah.
It's funny. So State of Alabama's recruits update, Luke. Wow. Okay. I mean, just start down with Clay Webb. Until proven otherwise, I'm still going to believe Clay Webb will end up at Alabama. I have nothing to make me think he won't end up there. I think it would be Alabama or Georgia. I don't really think Auburn's in the mix as much as people think. I know some of the Auburn sites believe Auburn's in there somewhere. And yeah, I mean, there's always a chance. So you're telling me there's a chance? I mean, I guess there's a chance. I would say it's Alabama, Georgia, and then Auburn a distant third. George Pickens. Speaking of Andrew Bone, he came out with an article today and said, hey, don't be surprised if George Pickens doesn't decommit very shortly. I don't know. He didn't give specifics, days, weeks, whatever, and reopens his recruitment and then looks at Alabama and Georgia. I wouldn't be surprised at that either. If I were a wide receiver commit to Auburn, I would have my concerns looking out there and seeing what I see.
Well, not only that, you have to look at their past of wide receivers. I mean, that's another thing that would kind of steer me away. Really have any guys that you point at in the NFL and say, oh, that guy's from Auburn.
And I'd say the same thing about offensive linemen.
Yeah.
If I were, again, it's one thing for these guys. People love to say, well, think about all the immediate playing time. Immediate playing time doesn't do you as much good if you're not getting coached well and you're not getting developed.
Yeah. And that's been the problem at Auburn is you hear all of them complain about it. There's no development there. And if there's no development, then you're not getting prepared for the next level.
No, that's right. And I mean, I've thought about that the other day when I looked at some players that are still in the NFL from both Alabama and Auburn. I thought, you don't really see it. And I think Ricardo Lewis may still be in the NFL. I'm not even sure where he is, though. He was at Cleveland for a while. He may still be with Cleveland. But how many Auburn offensive linemen are in the NFL right now that you can think of?
Yeah, I mean, maybe 3.
I can't name one. Can you?
I think the Lions have one maybe that I saw the other day.
The one from last year.
Yeah.
Braden
Smith.
Smith,
yeah.
Yep. But now, is he playing?
I don't think so.
Okay. And, I mean, that's another guy that he stayed his full years. I mean, again, most of the time an offensive lineman, if they're good enough and if they've been developed well and if they got potential, and that kid had a lot of potential coming out of Kansas, I think it was, the state of Kansas, man, you're gone. I mean, that's Jonah Williams, probably gone this year.
He's gone.
Should be gone.
He is going to be gone. I mean, there's no debating it. He's going to be gone.
Brandon Lee said, Paul Tyson surprising you in a positive way? Yeah, I think he is. I mean, I've seen him play a couple of times. Hewitt Trussell has this great app where you can watch their games live, and it's not just, high school equipment live. It's good stuff. It's replays. It's the whole nine. And I think, Braden Smith is with the Colts.
Okay.
But anyway, Paul Tyson, I think he's done really well. Now he's got some thoroughbreds to throw to. I mean, that Desalen Worsham, who's committed to Alabama for 2020, Jontavius Johnson, the wide receiver, committed to Auburn. Now, Johnson is small, but he's elusive. He's quick. I think he's a hell of a high school wide receiver. How it will translate next level, you don't know sometimes. I mean, you can have your Tyrone Pro throws, and then you can have guys that aren't Tyrone Pro throws. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know which direction he's going to be, but I think he's very good. I think he's probably worth taking a flyer on. He's especially worth taking a flyer on if you get a George Pickens in your class, and you sort of got the David and Goliath. But the Pickens things, we'll see how that turns out. Alabama's offensive line class is already pretty sick. I think they're going to end up with Clay Webb, and I think they might end up with Evan Neal out of IMG Academy. They also are looking at Darnell Wright out of West Virginia, who may end up at Tennessee, may end up at Ohio State. But Alabama's recruiting is still going pretty doggone well, I'd say. And there's some big names out there. Trey Sanders, the running back, five-star kid that I think will be in this class. Justin Mosley chimes in. Will Reichert is the only one Alabama needs in this class, and that's kind of true. Reichert has done pretty well, although first game of the year, they're on national television, he misses a field goal.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah. But hopefully he's going to be able to come in and kind of break the trend. And look, if I'm the Alabama coaches, don't coach him, okay? Just let him kick, let him do his thing. It's obviously working for him, so don't mess with the guy. And
I'm not a baseball guy. I was so glad to see the Braves put out yesterday, and I know this will probably – I can say piss off because it's Facebook Live. It'll probably piss off some of these fans. But you know what? The baseball this time of year, mid-October to late October, even into early November, it's just taken away from football talk. It just is. Baseball needs to be over by now. These seasons where they intermingle, I don't mind them intermingling just a little bit in the beginning, into baseball, beginning of football. I get that. Beginning of basketball, into football. I get that. But, man, this stuff where baseball is trying to cut into real quality, hardcore college football time, I don't like that at all. And I think, it's funny, the ratings are showing that people would rather watch a Monday night game between the Lions and the Jets than a Major League playoff game. Easily. I mean, it beats it easily. So I don't know why Major League Baseball keeps putting themselves in this posture.
Well, I can tell you why. They're not going to cut the amount of games that are played down because of all the records that are held. I mean, it's just been 162 games for so long.
We don't need 2 or 3 days in between games in baseball.
Well, there's not most of the time.
Well, even I think when is it? There's one game that started on. I think if the Braves had won, wouldn't the next game have been Wednesday?
Mm-hmm, it'd been tomorrow.
So that's what I'm saying. I mean, you'd have Monday off, Tuesday off,
but that's for travel though. They would have had to go all the way back to LA. They
go all the way back to LA all the time during the regular season.
Yeah, but most of the time, if they're making a cross country trip, they have a day off.
But again, I would also say this is the playoffs. This is kind of suck it up a little bit. Let's cut it. Let's get it going. Let's knock it out.
I think if anything, that spring training should start in February and games should start in March.
Okay,
so
I'm
that
down
way
with that.
The playoffs start in the beginning of September, and right when football is getting started, you have the playoff baseball. And it's done by October, and that way you have 2 clean months of football. I've been for that for a while. Baseball runs too long for it to start in March when people start following spring training, because if you like baseball, that's when you start following it.
Right.
All the way into the beginning of November. That's just a long time. So I wouldn't mind seeing it maybe moved up to where baseball started in March, but I mean, I'm for cutting games too. I mean, 162 games is a lot, but they're not going to do it because owners would lose money.
Right.
Records would be affected. So they're not going to do it for that. But I mean, I kind of agree with you in the sense that baseball does need to end sooner. And so that may mean starting it sooner. But that's also tough too, because you got teams playing in New York, you got teams playing in Boston. So
True.
It's just, there's a lot that goes into it.
All right. Here's the thing I was going to say. My whole point about bringing up baseball was, I know when a pitcher has a good game going, the whole thing is don't talk to him, don't get near him, which I've always thought that can work pro and con. I mean, my thing would just be do what you do.
Yeah.
Keep doing what you do. Don't go up to him and tell him how awesome it is. Baseball's big and jinxes and whatever. Maybe that's the same way with kickers. Maybe we are putting too much pressure. Maybe we should just –
if you go back to the national championship with Papanastos, there was somebody right there in his ear right before he ran out sitting here telling him all this stuff. And, I mean, to me, as a player, that would put a little bit of – I mean, you already know the pressure's there, but then you have all these people coming up talking to you, so you feel like you're going to let them down. So, I mean, I agree with you. Just let them be.
Randy said Alabama receivers no longer look like Julio, more of a speedster look, thin track guys. I wonder if it's a conscious decision. The whole crew at Bama is more Ridley than T.O. or Julio. The first thing I'd say is how many Julios?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, how many Julios and T.O.s running
Julio, A.J. Green. Even A.J. Green's not built like
and
Julio.
Terrell Shavers is there right now at 6'5".
Yeah, but now he's pretty lanky too, and he's kind of a track guy as well. See, George Pickens is probably the closest thing but Pickens isn't as fast as Julio. Julio was
You're not going to find Julio Jones.
Well, that's the thing. Alabama's had all these freaks. Julio might have been the freakiest of the freaky. Yeah. Now, the guy that I might put up there with him is Terrell Lewis. I mean, that guy.
He's already running. I don't know if you haven't seen the video, Terrell Lewis is already running. And he tore his ACL, July the 2nd, wasn't it? And he's already running, I mean, almost at full speed on the field, which is
that incredible. Deer antler spray will work wonders. I've never seen anything like it. But, yeah, I think Alabama does have a lot of track guys. Now, the one thing Alabama's done really well, they've gone into Miami, and they went and got Calvin Ridley. They got Amari Cooper, and now Jerry Jeudy. I think it's always a big thing to go down to Miami. If you remember, I remember the whole Sports Center thing about Miami receivers talking about how a lot of them just used to go out in these fields and chase rabbits. And, to chase a rabbit, you got to be pretty doggone quick. I mean, I don't guess you have to be that quick. You can try to pretend you're chasing them, but it's catching one that makes you quick. And a guy on another topic, Ahmad Richards, who Alabama recruited pretty heavily. I wanted Alabama to sign. I thought he was kind of an Amari Cooper type. Ended up signing with Miami, sort of keep everybody down home in Miami. And he sustained an injury this week. His football career is done.
Yeah.
Career is done.
All that.
Scary. Nobody looks like Julio. Justin Mosley says that's true. Any update on the Beauregard RB who signed with Mississippi State last year? He's at home. He is not in JUCO anymore. I just heard about this the other day. And why is his name escaping me? Please help me out.
LaDamian Webb.
LaDamian Webb. He was incredible. But I have heard, I do not know this to be 100% accurate. I've heard he is back home in the Opelika area working a 9 to 5. Or 10 to 4 or whatever it is.
No, I actually worked with a few guys this summer that played with him at Beauregard, and they told me that he is back at home and is working and isn't at Mississippi State anymore. So
I'll tell you, I heard it, and the only thing I could think is feel sorry. Feel sorry for him. Feel sorry for college football in general. I wanted him to go to Mississippi State and be successful. I have no problem saying I'm pulling for the likes of Keith Mixon. I'm pulling for a guy like Errol Thompson, who's also a linebacker at Mississippi State from Florence, I believe. And then, I pull for Ruggs' brother, Cavante Ruggs at Ole Miss. I mean, I like these guys. I mean, we covered them with the HSA Radio Network. We're blessed to get to work with these guys and see them and talk to them. And, you hear nothing but all these fantastic things about LaDamian Webb and his talent. And as far as I know, he was a good, quality, likable person. But there were some things that he couldn't get straightened out academics-wise, apparently, and didn't work out for him. I don't necessarily know the dream is completely over. Maybe somebody can still take a chance on him. Look, we just saw a story from Adam Thielen, I think, the wide receiver from Minnesota. He was bagging groceries and doing everything else in the world except playing football. He went out for a tryout, made the team, and now he's one of the top 3 or 4 wide receivers in the NFL.
And, he didn't start classes, so technically his eligibility hasn't even started yet for college. So, I mean, he could take off 2-3 years, stay in shape, and then try to go do something.
He could. Randy said, we're talking about receivers, said that was his point. Pickens doesn't look what Bama is putting out there now. And I think the thing I'd say about that, Randy, is Pickens looks different than most receivers, I'd say. When you see somebody that tall, they are pretty lanky. He's pretty thick. That's not saying he's not going to be a receiver. He's got the tools, certainly. He's got the hands. He's got the size. He is a little slower than your average receiver, but when you're that big and you can take such long strides, I think
not only that, he just goes up and gets it above people.
He does. And he played for a good program.
Pass catcher, and he's playing at a great program.
Playing for
the
Hoover.
Best program in Alabama.
And so they're going to develop him. And then Randy Lee said Ruggs is a real deal too. There's no doubt about that. Ruggs is he's a tough character, man. In fact, he and his brother kind of got into it just for a brief second at the Ole Miss game. And then afterwards they were hugging and doing. But I don't think either one of them is going to back down from one another. And, in the end, Devontae Smith's going to be the one with the, probably the most memorable catch of the crew. But I would say Judy, I've looked at some mock NFL drafts for 2020 because all 3 of these guys will be back next year along with Waddle. And most of these drafts have Tua going number 1. Most of them have Judy going in the top 15 or so. And Devontae Smith, I've seen him in the 2nd round, but in Ruggs, I saw in 1 first-round mock. I'm so fascinated by people who put these mock drafts out. Who was you can tell I'm older than you because I'm losing my memory here. But it helped me out. The lineman from Arkansas signed with Auburn and Tommy Tuberville that had all the accolades coming in. And he was okay. He just wasn't. He didn't set the world on fire, the offensive lineman.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Well, when he signed with Auburn, somebody will know out there and they'll chime in. When he signed with Auburn and after his freshman year, I think his freshman year was actually the 2010 season, and he ended up in being number 1 in the mock draft for 3 years down the road and ended up – I don't even know if he was drafted, to be honest with you. So, well, that's going to wrap it up for the Bama Blitz. I mean, that's going to be kind of what we do here is just – talk off the cuff. We're not going to come in here with a syllabus. We're not going to come in here with an itinerary. We kind of want to go wherever you lead us and just talk about all things Alabama. Certainly, we will get into some basketball talk here as the season begins to crank up. Really excited about that. I'm good buddies with Brian Passink. Hopefully, I'll be able to talk to him some and find out some things going on with the team. Lee Zimba, Justin Clayton just chimed in. Lee Zimba. You remember Lee Zimba? Yeah. So, anywho, thank you all for being with us. We really do appreciate it. We'll be here next Tuesday, God willing, and hopefully we'll be here with pretty much regularity, and then we'll see if we can maybe have a few more times in the week to do this, at least while this dynasty is going on. Look, when the dynasty dies, I'm done with Bama Blitz. How about that? Fair enough?
Well, hopefully that's about 15 years.
That's right. For Caleb Brooks, I'm Luke Robinson saying thank you, guys. We'll see you again next week.
Roll Tide.